Okay, hello everyone. This is going to be my voiced walkthrough of Subaja solo with Hrunting Berserker. Really quick before I go into it, I want to mention one thing that's pretty important. Mugen's used as a sack character. Make very sure that you do not take his EMP skill to maybe survive because he is sacrificed on turn 1 for Caim. And you don't want that, and you also don't want like dodge on his ringer earrings, just to make sure he doesn't accidentally survive. So at the start, playing around the fact that Subaja does triggers on every 6 turns, so turn number divided by 6, we're going to make sure we're using abilities kind of around that part or waiting until that happens so that we don't end up in a situation where we're locked out of cooldown. So for example, like I won't be casting Galleon skill 2 here because I might need it for my 6 turn element. Next thing, you'll notice I guarded on Galleon. You want Galleon also to be acting every even turn for the same reason listed above, that it's important that if you have to make hit counts, you have to make other like debuff stuff like that, you want to be able to have her attacking for that portion. So especially for the 60 hit trigger, because that helps us go into the 10. It's just easier to set her up on turn 1, and then you don't have to think about it after that, because she'll always be acting on the even turns. So here we're typically I'm leaving Ogies on. I know that like the fastest runs with JP Ping don't do that, but this lets us stack up our Caim card buffs on everybody. The 60 hit trigger is the one that we came into first, which is also why you bring Mugen, because he can give you echoes, which is very nice. So I'm going to make sure I use a red border skill here so that Caim also gets spades. And then I'm going to use my other abilities to make sure I get as many hits as possible. You also notice that I Tiger skill 3 on turn 5. That's to make sure they guaranteed TA on turn 6. Now obviously if it wasn't 60 hits, I would have not been able to do that for turn 12. But most of the time you'll want to have that guaranteed for turn 5, specifically because as the turn gets later, you'll have more Galleon buffs up. So for the hits, it's easier to make the hit count triggers later with Galleon. Same reason here, leaving Ogies on for Galleon cooldowns, because when she Ogie, she gets her cooldowns up faster, and that means I get my buffs out quicker. And realistically also, you don't need to clear the debuff trigger, which is something that... Actually, I'm going to summon Lucy here because I want to make sure I make the damage trigger, since my Berserker buff is worn off. But you don't necessarily have to make the debuff trigger. Really, the most important one is the 60 hit. However, it's way easier to play if you land the debuff trigger. Also, something that's not on the weekend, I don't know if this has just been my personal experience or not, but if you fail this debuff trigger, landing debuffs later becomes significantly harder. I don't know if that's just a placebo thing, but I've noticed that I've had a significantly harder time landing debuffs throughout the rest of the fight when I haven't succeeded at the debuff trigger. We have plenty of debuffs here. You always want to cast bubs first to make sure that the debuff res is lowered, because you can see we have the full water tenant stacks. Of course, it's a solo, and And we also cast H&M and wait until that happens to cast H&M. She's now full buffs out on everybody. I could realistically turn Ogies off here. You do want to make sure that your Caim has spades as his card type. This doesn't need to be always, but it's nice because it can give him more bar quickly if you need to get him back up to Ogie. And later on it's easier just to chain through skills with it because you want to be pushing damage. And then same thing here, you'll notice that because my Ulfaldane is down, I'm going to use a damage summon just to make sure. This would be another situation where you could Caim skill 3 to make up that difference. And then it's safe to leave Ogies on, or rather to use that Tiger skill to leave Ogies on, because no matter what the trigger was, I was safe anyway, since I've already done the 2 triggers that are important, or the 2 omens, I should say, that are important, hits and debuffs. But it is important to get Tigers to keep casting their skill 1 so that they can try to keep applying debuffs beyond that. I'm actually tempted to Yarima here soon, just to refresh the debuff res down duration. And one thing you'll notice that can happen here, and you don't really have to pay attention to it in a solo, but something to pay attention to if you're not soloing, is that you can potentially hit on a divided by 4 coming into the 75% trigger, which of course, if you're in a group of people, can cause problems because you want to see more of these triggers before 50% so that you can clear them. In a solo, it doesn't really matter because obviously I'm on turn 24. I'm going to have plenty more turns before I get to before I get to 50%. Another thing to remember is save Fated Chain for after this debuff lands, because it's shortened on Fated Chain with Galleon. You also notice I don't really have to pay as much attention to MC skills being on the divided by 6 anymore, because really you need them for well, you'll need them in phase in below 50%, but above 50% you really just need to make sure that you have MC available to cast skills for debuffs and MC available to cast skills for the hits triggers, just to make sure that you have the buff active for the hit triggers. Also, you could tell with the Caim stack defenses and the water damage reduction from the Draconic, you really are not at an unsafe health. Like, the health is going to keep going up as we keep going. You can use Galleon skill 1 to speed this up, which I will do because I do have stamina in my grid, so HP is good. Also, if you're worried about the Draconic, yes, I upgraded it yesterday, but it's not needed. And by needed, I mean you don't have to upgrade it with the Hexarade. Just the basic Draconic at skill level 20 is fine. You're using it for the water defense anyway. And to make that point, crystal clear, I also am not using the opus specifically for that reason, because you can use them side by side, but it's really not needed. Next thing you probably see me doing is I'm alternating guarding Tiger on the turns that Galleon is attacking, just to keep the damage even. Galleon hits really hard, helps us do our damage triggers, everything's fine there. However, if you have, say, like a 20 million trigger and Galleon can't act and Tiger's only acting once, then you could be in a position where if you have bad RNG with your hits or something, you end up not doing enough damage. So on the turns that Galleon is attacking, so on all the even turns, I'm guarding with Tiger. And both Galleon and Tiger have like effects when guarding, so it's very easy for Tiger to attack twice and also Ogi twice at the same time. So we're very easily making damage triggers after this. Another thing you'll notice that I'm not doing, and I could probably squeeze in a cycle, but it's just personally so I don't forget I don't do it, is when you're going into 50%, you want blue skill, and you want his blue skill too. That's important for the 12 skills trigger in the second phase. And so I typically just, when I get to blue skills, I'm fine with just keeping it that way. With like the Caim, and I'll show you the end of a turn here since we're doing okay on time. Part of why I have to refresh is just there's so many end of turn effects that it really would take forever if I didn't refresh every single time. I know looking at the numbers is cool, but adding extra time every single turn. You can say I take basically no damage, but between the boss dispels, Tigers gain stuff, end of turn damage, refreshes, all that stuff, it's just it's kind of a pain not to refresh. So here's one thing that's good. Going in 42 as I hit 50 is ideal. Well, not 42 the turn exactly, but 42 is divisible by 6. So this means that I have my 6 turns to make sure everything is squared away for the phase 2 triggers, which is in the sub 50% triggers. Because these cooldowns are 5 turns, I am actually okay to cast them here, and I'm going to do that. Just because I don't want to be too far off. And here I go, goofing and giving Caim blue skill, but it's not that big of a deal. Blue skill is fine. It is okay to start to cycle Titan in this phase just because the boss does multi-strike AoEs and he gets his echoes in this phase. Echoes happen after divisible by 5 turns, so since 45 was last turn, he's going to gain them for 46. You'll see the same thing on 51, 56, etc. We're about to go into turn 48, so you can see I don't have buffs up, but I am going to have to just eat this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast Bubs here, actually. Partially because Yadima didn't land the Bub's Dispel, I ended up pulling Titan and Lucifer, which is fine, but I do kind of want to dispel those echoes. This is to make sure I clear the damage trigger before I can start to refresh my buffs, get my buttons back, etc. Alright, so charge attack 6 times. This one, you kind of have to pay attention to if it's later in the 50% phase. Right now it's fine. What I'm going to do, and the only thing that is going to change is Tigers, I'm going to press skill 3. Failing this trigger, which of course we're going to do because we can't OE 6 times, is you lose the ability to guard. Now, if you pass this 60 hit trigger in the first half, which we did, Tigers actually dodges this effect, so you can see that the other 3 of my characters can't guard anymore, but Tigers still can. And that's pretty important for us, because what that's doing is that's letting us continue our Tiger guard every other turn, just to make sure that we keep the run consistent here. So we're continuing as is, which is just using either skills like Tiger's Skill 1, which is on a lower cooldown, or MC's skills, which are less than 6 turn cooldowns for the most part, especially until we clear some of the other triggers, and we can be a little bit looser with our skill usage. You'll notice I don't run Kieran because I don't need it, but Caim also casts so many skills on his own that we don't have to worry about. Oops, I should go Hero Tigers. We don't have to worry about not having enough skills to do the 12 skills, whereas some comps would. So. Like I said, if you're taking more damage than this, if you're worried about healing, you can use Fated Chain again, because that does heal up. So this is one of the triggers we were waiting for, the 3.3 mil plane damage. This is the one that even in multiplayer runs you really want to see, because what happens at 20% or at 10% is this caps your total HP to 20k, and that means you pretty much can't push past 10. Well, you can, but it's very, very spooky. So this means we're seeing the skill element last, which it's not a big deal. Just means we have to be a little bit more, like I said, slightly more careful with our skill usage here. So in here I'm going to use Lucy just to make sure that I successfully pass this 20. I'd probably be fine just with Fated Chaining here, but I'm just going to do Bubs anyway. And when the 12 skill trigger is done, like if I had completed it on one of those earlier trigger phases, I would actually just be casting MC skills off cooldown. You still do, of course, have to pay attention to Galleon skill 2, but the rest of the fight, you don't have to pay as much attention to the trigger here. So this is why we start with the blue skill, because you want, when this cooldown is refreshed, to have the ability to refresh again. So it goes blue skill, spade, refresh, and then copy, which refreshes. Back to spade, refresh. Back to blue skill, spade again. So you'll see we're already down to, and I did cast a tiger skill, but Caim casts like 8 skills on his own, something like that. So the remaining skills are pretty easy. It's also nice because we get a couple of, since he casts the blue skill a couple times, we get a couple chances at hype, and you'll see we're at hype 4 here, which is just going to help with pushing damage a little bit. I do apologize about the loading times. I don't know, just because I'm recording, that it's going a little bit slow or what, but we're kind of at this point just continuing our previous pace. So go back to something I talked about earlier. If I was to say get the 6 CA Omen on that last one, I would want to make sure that I take enough turns or use Yadima a couple of times to make sure that it comes back up by 10%, because that is how we cross the 10% trigger safely. And so if you're in a situation where you get to the 10% trigger and you don't have Tiger Skill 3 up, then you're in kind of a pickle. So it's important to pay attention to the cooldowns there. Similar thing here, and it looks like it's gonna work out well. I want to be ideally, I want to be going into 10 with debuffs recently applied, and so Bubs is going to help us do that, because I'm going to I'm going to have Bubs up next turn, which also happens to land on turn 71, which is nice for getting rid of the echoes too. So this is just going to work out nicely. Alright, so we came up on 10. Now the important thing to do is make sure that you do not just rapid cast this. You want to actually use double deal for this one. So, and I'll explain it as we go through 10. So this lets you cast the skill without incurring its cooldown. And then we're going to Titan. If you have high HP, like I think it's around or maybe a little over 100k, you're safe. So we're actually going to watch it play through just to see what I mean. You're going to take all 4 of the hits of true damage, which actually go down from 99, from about 100,000 to about 25,000 if you take them solo. And then Tigris is going to dodge the second strike, so part of the dual strike of Subaja here. I don't know why it's taking so long. Holy cow. And then the end of turn refreshes and stuff are going to keep her alive over the end of turn damage from the light omens. So you'll see the 4 hits are taken there. She's going to drop really low, dodge the next attacks. And then because of her buff count, she is going to refresh heal from the Caim Scepter, and then she's going to take the turn-based damage. So she can survive without... she can technically survive without needing Titan there, but Titan is good, and Titan you definitely need if she's below 100k. The next step is we're going to start to deal damage. So this is really just dealing effective damage without taking turns. So we're going to start doing stuff like proccing canes. And we don't have to worry about the turn-based damage in here, so you're no longer guarding with Tiger. You want to make sure Tiger's just doing as much as she can. So I cast, again, with the double deal, I was able to cast the skill for free. So now I'm going to cast a copy, which is going to give me Assassin again. I'm going to cast Spade, which is another attack. Refresh, generate some hype, and then Spade attack again. Because in this phase, as the boss gets a drain, you want to do as much damage as you can outside of turns. Ideally, you would double deal a Beast Fang here, but I didn't have it line up with that way, but that's okay. And attack again. So took some more damage here. Now that we have double deal, we're going to start to get rid of all these echoes, because the echoes are causing us to take a lot of damage. And a blue pot faded chain here just because can help us with some stamina damage. All right, now we come back to Genesis Nova. Now this is where we need to put Titan and again Tiger skill 3. And since we are cutting a little bit close on time, I'm going to try to spam out these couple turns. Then we'll talk about it after that because this loading is taking forever. I'm sorry. I don't know why we took so much damage there. Must have made a mistake. Alright, so here we're going to Alexiel, because she does not have water switch like Caim did. She doesn't have water switch from Caim, I should say. So we're going to both Galleon buff her and use her shield, and then we're actually going to guard with her as well. Well, this is a little bit scuffed, but here we are. And there we go. So yeah, I took a lot more damage than normal at the end there, and I don't know, like I said, I'm sorry about the recording may just be delaying my animations playing and stuff computer-wise, so I do just have like a random laptop. But typically I go through that I'm very safe. I don't even need the Alex turns. So yeah, I cut it a little bit close on time, had about 30 seconds left. Obviously MC's a very large portion of the damage, but that's kind of the spread. Here's the grid. Like I said, I use resonators. This isn't super necessary, but I like it for consistency because it does give you an extra hit on triple attacks, which helps you meet the hit triggers. This just prevent bad RNG because you can get hit triggers right away, like we did there, and if you have bad RNG with double and triple attacks, you may have a problem. I guess there is something to be said that you could use multi-attack for the main thing here. Tigers are axe specialty. Berserker, of course, is axe specialty. And then Caim is considered proficient with every weapon, so he would benefit from the multi-attack from that as well. So that would probably help a little bit for consistency. I like Stam because I just left it on Stam, but a lot of people are switching to multi-attack for their Hex runs, and you can do that here as well. And then same thing with Seraphic is this could be heal cap, but as you saw, it was pretty healthy. I don't really need heal cap. I just leave it on this to help for sandbox farming and stuff. It's kind of annoying to change those keys, which is part of why I do summon to get Subaja mats. I do have my characters plussed. I definitely done it before without them plussed. Same thing with the summons. Like, it does help base HP, and again, if you accidentally miss time, using Titan or something, and you can't go into the 10, you're going to have problems. But as you can see, it's just a safe run. Pretty quick. I could have turned off Ogies sooner if I wanted to go a little bit faster. And again, there was that delay in time. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Just nice little chill solo Subaja. And thanks for watching.